Okay, I think we are live. Hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
For some reason, I'm always in the dark here. So we're waiting. We're waiting for our Australian correspondent to fix his camera. Okay. Well,
Okay, we have picture. Do we have voice?
we have voice. We do not have picture. I can share things if you want to just comment. Just in audio. That's also okay.
The videos work. Did you say his video is not working? Because it is working for me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Oh, really? You can see Michael? I see a black square.
Oh, yes,
That's-
he is visible.
Okay. Maybe I'll just watch him on YouTube. Okay. Is there anything that I can do?
I'm hearing echo, but it's like 5 or 10 seconds delayed.
From who do you know?
Do you happen to have the YouTube open yourself?
That's it.
Okay.
Ruby. Mute that. Okay. Thank you.
Well, okay. I trust that Michael looks great. Oh, yeah, I know what it is. I think I know what it is. But I can't change it. Okay, that was possibly my fault because I don't know what it is. I thought I turned Michael's video off, like video recording off. Well, okay, Michael, I can't see you, so feel free to mock me visually.
Well,
Feel free
can I mock you audibly?
You always can do that.
Okay, so
It's very weird. I don't know why that would be happening, but okay.
so can anyone else see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Mm-hmm. Ah, and I've got my default background. Okay.
Actually, if I leave, is it gonna end the stream? I wonder. Well,
Possibly.
okay. I won't risk it. Maybe I'll just watch it later on YouTube.
I still look the same. Don't worry.
Oh, actually, Michael, could you try to share a screen just to
Oh my
make sure
God.
that I can see that?
Okay. Hints on doing that. Settings, is it?
There should be
Present
present.
or present if you want to. Present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Share screen. Share screen. Double click watch to approve. Ah, okay. Quit and reopen.
Okay. And Michael's gone. Okay, but well, maybe I'll be able to
First
see
the
it.
quit and then the reopen.
Okay.
Is that a regular quit or a rage quit? Does it matter?
Okay. Okay, I can see your flag and face.
Excellent.
Result.
So are you still trying to share a screen or no?
Yeah, I'm going to try it wanted to restart Brave. Okay, share screen. Share screen.
This is the content everybody gets,
Okay,
rushes
so
to
then-
YouTube to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fine.
This is what
there we
the
go.
Okay, so fine. That's the mini VMAC for iOS. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, it worked.
And shops.
Okay, I think that's good enough. So I guess we can start. Any objections? Is everyone recording
No.
locally?
Yes.
yes. Let's podcast.
It's December 8th, 2024, and welcome to episode 282 of the Retrocomputing Roundtable. The RCR is a podcast about retro computer news, nostalgia, collecting, and 1982, I guess. So I'm Paul Hagstrom near Boston. I am joined today by 3 retrocomputing enthusiasts. We have Michael Mulhern in Sydney. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Excellent. We have Quinn Dunkey in an undisclosed mountain, British Columbia. How are you?
Hello. Very, very good. It's sunny here today, which is amazing because I haven't seen the sun in like 3 weeks. It's been a very dark fall.
Excellent. And joining us today also is Kay Savitz in Portland, right?
That's right. Hello.
Excellent.
Good to
How are
be
you
back.
doing?
Great.
Excellent. Yeah. Here we've had a little bit of snow and whatever. It's winter's beginning, but
No. That's
yeah.
that's soft stuff that falls out of the sky, as opposed to lumpy stuff that falls out of the sky.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
we've only had the lumpy stuff.
Cool.
No, definitely not cool.
My just a couple days ago, the furnace in our place failed in a totaled kind of way. So
Oh no.
I don't want my
repair is
furnace
going
to
be
fail because
in my future.
my furnace is the sun at the moment. I'd rather it sort of like went down a bit.
Yep.
Been 40 plus this last week with humidity to match.
Ouch.
My furnace failed actually a few weeks ago as well, and turned out to be a surgeon who leaves the forceps inside the patient. The original builder of the house had left a deburring tool inside the ductwork, and it took 20 years to work its way down into the furnace motor and seized it. It was amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah, like 1,000,000 to 1. This thing was clearly a 20-year-old tool when we pulled it out, and it was just it just obliterated the fan and the motor and everything.
Okay. Yeah, so the motor's been deburred from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. It was extremely deburred, as was the tool itself. Yes, no burrs left anywhere, or it's all burrs now. I'm not sure which, but yeah, crazy. I would not have believed it if he hadn't pulled that tool out and shown it to me.
Of course, he initially accused you of, did you lose this?
Yes. Well, so somewhere, I don't know who built this house, but somewhere there is a home builder whose name just made my list.
Perhaps it's a little bit like the disk drives that you get off eBay full of jelly beans or whatever from the little kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the last 20 years, I've been wondering where the deburrer is. All I got is the silhouette left on the pegboard.
All right. So yes, we're here. This is episode 282, and of late we have been kind of tracking the years that sort of correspond to the episode number. So 1982 is our year, and so the topic today would be just basically like significant things in 1982 in the sort of retro computing universe, and there are many.
Yes, university, yay!
Yeah.
Long-haired student Michael, mullet. Sunny Bank Tavern.
1982 was the year that I got the Apple II Plus that sort of started me. I mean, I'd seen them a little bit in schools before, but that was basically my origin year.
Oh, computers in school. How modern of you! I didn't see a computer. I didn't see a computer or touch a computer till I was actually first year uni.
Yeah, 81 or 82 would have been when we got our Apple II Plus at home as well. Yeah, it was one of those years, I think. So that would have been a formative one for sure.
Mm. Yeah, and until I went to university, computers were something that you saw on television or at the movies. They weren't something that was in my immediate life.
Hmm. Well, okay, so one thing that came out in 1982 was the Commodore 64. That had a
Never heard of it.
No, sorry, I'm gonna have to Google that.
Sounds like a fad.
Mm.
Sold those at Kmart, right?
Yeah,
Garbage.
I mean, yep. At one point, it was going to be named, or at least its internal name was Vic 40.
Wow, that would have been terrible.
Yep.
Mm.
I mean, all due respect, yeah, it was the best-selling computer of all time. If you're just counting like single model the Commodore 64 in its single unchanged form. They sold what it says here 17 million of them they sold, which is just astonishing.
Yeah, listed in the Guinness World Records book.
Yeah.
So
it was a very good computer with a terrible disk drive.
The little joke I had put in the show notes was that it spawned Run magazine, which people failed to follow this advice in droves. But
well, you had to have something to read while you were waiting for anything to load.
Right. But yeah, no. So Quinn, I guess you've been sort of exploring the Commodore universe a bit.
I have. I've been quite Commodore curious recently. So I've been playing some Commodore games.
Who hurt you?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Show me on the processor where they hurt you. Yeah, it's been fun. It's obviously a very different world. It's challenging to learn this stuff as an adult, because we're all sort of used to what we grew up with, and so that machine feels easy, and all the other ones feel weird and hard because they're all so different. But the skills don't transfer from retrocomputer to retrocomputer the way they do from like Mac to Windows. Like you use one, you kind of figure out the other, or most Linux Windows managers, you can pretty much figure them out. But my Apple II knowledge is completely useless when trying to use a Commodore 64. So that's been a learning experience. I mean, mostly all I'm doing is I got my 1541 Ultimate, and I'm booting up games and playing them. And the 1541 Ultimate will launch games for you, so you don't even have to know the Commodore operating system at all. It makes it really easy. So I've done a little bit of, load star, *8, *1ing, and so on.
Yep.
But now with the 1541 Ultimate, I don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. One of the neat things about the Commodore is how many new games still come out for it. So I've played a couple of games that were just recently developed, and they're honestly fantastic, a lot of them.
Yeah, it had a lot of sort of hardware support for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and truth be told, I mean, as an Apple II person, a lot of the Commodore games really, really look good. Like the graphics on some of them. Like I think I said in our last recording, I was playing Security Alert, which was a game that I knew from back in the day, and it's just it looks like the best of the Apple II double high-res games, even better. But it's just an average Commodore game visually, I think. So yeah, the difference is stark, and of course the sound and all that as well. But yeah, the disk speed thing is really hard to get past as an Apple II person. Like you spend so much time sitting there waiting for the games to do something as they're loading the next screen or the next menu or whatever, and that's hard to get past, I will say. I guess also just as a modern person too, it's hard to wait for anything anymore. But
yeah,
right. But it was quite cheap. I mean, so
yeah,
I'm sure that figured into it. But
yeah. I mean, the amount of computer you got for the money on these things was amazing. I mean, Apple IIs were crazy expensive at the time. Apple stuff has always been expensive, and these things were very, very cheap. It says here on the screen, $595, which is equivalent to $1,800 today. I mean, the Apple II, I'm pretty sure we paid $3,500 for our Apple II in $1982. So, and that was with, and we had a bunch of stuff with it. There was a printer card and a printer, and we had all the bells and whistles with it. So that was pretty top of the line with the language card and everything. But still, like, that's a crazy amount of money compared to what you could pay for a Commodore.
Even with the dealer discount, my Apple IIc fully kitted out was over $2,000 worth of computer back in '84. So yeah, big bickies.
Yeah.
But I never got to use a Commodore 64. The closest I got was the VIC-20. So similar style, but never got to play on. I've only ever run an emulator for the Commodore 64.
When I was sort of looking into this, I also got a chance to see the sort of predecessor computer, which is also 1982. It was the Max machine was pretty much only in Japan, but it seems pretty cool.
I've never heard of this. What do you mean by predecessor? Was this like something between the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64?
That's my understanding. Yes, that it was basically just in Japan, and it. Well, no, that's not true. It was large. The Max machine was in Japan. It did sell as the Ultimax, which I really have never heard of outside Japan. But and it was originally named the Commodore Vicky. but but one thing that is, I'd been aware of this once before, because you can buy on eBay these like patent, the things you put on the wall of like patent illustrations or whatever, and the Commodore 64 one that I've seen anyway looks like this thing. Like instead of looking like what they eventually looked like, the patent that they drew the thing from was of the Max machine.
Huh.
But
well, I guess they dodged a bullet by putting a real keyboard on the Commodore 64, because if they had released the 64 with this keyboard, it never would have sold 17 million units. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
Those membrane keyboards were a death knell for any computer.
Yeah. Curtis in the chat says that the Max was a 16K RAM version of the Commodore 64. So anyway, but I thought that was
Reminds me of
somewhat interesting.
the Radio Shack color computer in its styling.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a sort of incremental creativity going on in this space.
Yeah.
Let's see. Don't know what one other thing I have on the list is Tron. That's kind of retrocomputing.
Yep.
Yeah, that was 82. Okay. Huh.
So.
Yeah, I remember seeing that one in the cinema.
Oh yeah, I think I did a couple times.
Yeah, that movie was a big deal. I think kids today may not understand how big a deal that movie was. It was a real cultural phenomenon. Breakfast cereals and cartoons and toys, and that movie was everywhere.
Yeah. I'm not sure I saw it in the cinema back then. Probably saw it on Laserdisc at my friend's house. But I did see it last year at the Hollywood Theater in Portland, a 70 millimeter print.
Oh, nice.
And that was beautiful. It was like the restored, version in 70 millimeter, and it was crispy. It was very, very nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, that would be the way to see this, because it was all analog, low tech, effects in it. It wasn't a lot of CG in it. It was a lot of like rotoscoping and tricky lighting effects and stuff to make everything look computer generated. But of course, they didn't have the horsepower to actually do CG like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really liked the sort of just aesthetic of all the sort of like wireframe everything.
Yeah, the sort of neon. It was very of its time too. It was the age of neon pinstriping and such on things. So it was the right look for the time.
Also, I approve of Tron because there is an Apple III in it.
All right, check your bingo cards. Who got the Apple III box checked?
Yep.
Carrington's girlfriend being the free square, of course.
That's right. And K's actually just right here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, K is a square, so we got that one automatically.
Yeah. The next thing I had on my list was Choplifter, which was also 1982.
I guess I should have known that, because I just wrote a whole bunch of stuff about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Choplifter, 1982.
I did not realize how long that went. I knew Choplifter as this game on the Apple II, and that was more or less it. I'd heard that maybe it had been in an arcade or whatever, but part of the reason I even came across this was that there's a video that just came out. Okay, well, we'll watch an ad. Sorry, I thought I'd skipped all the ads. But there's a video that just came out from Slopes at a game room that sort of talked about the history of Choplifter. And it's a 26-minute video. About the first 10 minutes are kind of like about the history, the Apple II era, and Dan Gorlin and stuff. But then it gets ported to all these other platforms, and other people know it from that. And I certainly didn't. I didn't know of any of these ports.
Yeah, it was a monstrous hit, this game, and it's funny because the marketing was so siloed in those days. Like if you were an Apple II person, you didn't see ads for Master System games or whatever because those ads were in the Master System magazines and stuff. So yeah, whatever your platforms of choice were, you saw the marketing for those platforms. But yeah, the Choplifter was on everything, and like you said earlier, it was one of only 2 games to ever make the move from computer to arcade. This one and Lode Runner both did.
And actually, the reason I know about this video is because Herb posted it on Facebook. So
Cool.
that's a bit of listener feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Herb.
But yeah, but it actually ends. The video ends with a discussion of something called Choplifter HD, which we're watching a little bit of on the stream here. And it's just like a completely modern game that was available on Steam and various things, but it's no longer viable because and the speculation in the video is that basically somebody just made this without the rights. And nobody knows who has the rights, and so now it's gone.
That's
but
funny.
It looks very good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never seen this version. Well, I guess the rights would probably currently belong to Blizzard because Blizzard bought Activision, right? And Activision bought Broderbund. So maybe, I don't know. That's a guess.
Yeah, it's almost like Blizzard is the default guess.
Yeah, it used to be Activision because Activision bought everybody, but then I think Blizzard just bought Activision, so now they own everything. So now the whole world is owned by Blizzard or Disney.
Yeah, excellent.
Sad.
Curtis says that Pitfall 2 went from the VCS to the arcade as well.
Interesting.
So, speaking of which, Pitfall is also 1982.
Doesn't Microsoft own Blizzard?
Do they? Oh, maybe that's the big purchase I'm thinking of. Yeah. Microsoft bought Blizzard. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I knew one of the big
I
ones.
only knew that because of Infocom, because Activision was owned. Infocom was owned by Activision until it was owned by Microsoft.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah. Wow, Pitfall. One of the coolest thing about Pitfall and those early 2600 Activision games was the Activision logo at the bottom of the screen. If you know the Atari VCS, there is a non-trivial amount of CPU being dedicated to rendering that stupid logo. And it was a total flex, because everything on the VCS was really low res, because of course you had to erase the beam. There was no frame buffer. So you could only have, your resolution was dictated basically by how fast your code could be. And so to have that really high resolution little Activision logo being rendered on every frame was just madness. It's such a waste of resources, but it was an awesome flex to show that they could do it better than Atari did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do remember being super impressed with just the difference between this and Combat.
Oh yeah. I mean, Pitfall was a revelation on the platform. They were right to go off on their own because they knew they could do a lot better games if they had the time and the resources. And yeah, I mean, Atari was happy with Combat at the time because they thought they were just selling toasters. They didn't think of it, I don't think, as so much of a platform that was going to change the world. But yeah, Pitfall was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I forget if there was a Pitfall Classic Postmortem at GDC 2011. With David Crane, who was the author of this, and we probably talked about it. Did we?
Were we
doing this then? I don't know, but and so I forget what all was in it, but I know that it was quite interesting, and at least I've read certain things about it that just the design of the game, the very horizontal design of the game, so you could get away with racing the beam effectively. It was designed to with the limitations of the hardware in mind, for sure. Yeah, and Curtis points out that Activision was founded on the idea of giving the authors of the games more credit. Atari was sort of famously reticent to do that. Although, to be fair, Atari did give royalties to the programmers, even if they didn't give them as much credit as Activision did. So those early Atari programmers, Todd Fry, Rob Zidibel, Howard Warshaw, those guys made a lot of money on those early Atari games, even if they didn't get all the credit that Activision would have given them. So it's good to keep perspective on there. Atari was not
abusing those guys in some sort of sweatshop and then denying them credit. They made an awful lot of money on those games. I mean, Todd Fry was famously getting 6-figure checks from, Atari 2600 Pac-Man, just like regular 6-figure checks. So they got deals that no video game developer ever got again, because suddenly everyone realized from that how much money there was in this industry. And so then the companies started just paying salaries because they realized they could just keep all that money because they want money. And why should they give it to programmers?
Yes. And that is how money works. But,
Exactly. The other fun fact about Activision is that they called it Activision partly so that it would appear before Atari in the phone book.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Or in
then,
the vendors tables or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then same with Accolade. Was it Accolade or Acclaim that was then founded from Activision for the same reason? Because then it would appear before Activision. I think it was Accolade. It was started by Activision alumni. Just the most ridiculous war ever.
AAA video games.
Eventually, someone forms a company just called
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, these are experts in programming and sorting, right? So.
Yeah.
It took so long because they bubble sorted it.
Yeah. Another thing that was 1982 was the Vectrex. We talked a little bit about that. I think recently for some reason, but it remains very cool. The vector game. Oh, I have. And it has these little like overlays that go over it to make it.
That's the bit. That's actually
color.
the bit I love the most. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just drop that on the floor then.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone brought one of these to Kansas Fest one year, and that was the only time I've ever touched one in person. And it really is neat. It's a neat thing.
I loved it for the selection of video, the actual physical overlays, because it's reminiscent of some of the early laser printers that I used to work with, where if you had a form that was going to be lasered onto the page, the text would be all variable data, but you could actually slide a physical overlay into the machine, and that would basically produce the fixed image onto the paper. So it was sort of like great to see it being used for something a lot more fun.
Fourier mentions in the chat that at Kansas Fest they had a Neon Cat program for the Vectrex. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, the Vectrex is one of those consoles that has a thriving modern development community for it. People really love this thing, I guess, because it is so weird and interesting.
Just to maybe to say it out loud, it had vector graphics. That was the thing, that it was not a raster system.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, there's a 3. Yeah, I guess I was just reading a paragraph here about optional peripherals, and one of the optional, there's a light pen you can get, and there are 3D goggles, and I'd forgotten about the 3D goggles, but I do not have those. I have the light pen, but
the 3D goggles had like two lenses, and then they were like spinning wheels in them.
Oh wow!
That changed color. We'll say that they were red and green. I assume, and they would spin. So you put these glasses on your head that were like literally moving from the centrifugal force of these little terrible spinning wheels. And people complain about things giving you headaches, but oh my god, this was just like a migraine producing machine. And you could get a bit of a 3D effect, but you're wearing this thing on your head that's just like little stuck to your head and spinning. And I think they sold about 4 of them, and they're all worth $10 million now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it must have been synchronized with the video, and so it's alternately probably showing other alternate interlaced frames, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's really interesting. That was tried again later, like the PS1 or 2 had 3D glasses that were shutter glasses, they called them. I think it used LCD displays to alternately block one eye and then the other to show you alternate frames synchronized to the video. But again, the frame rate was poor and it flickered and
my
instant
buddy had that
headache.
same thing for his Atari ST, and it was you basically LCD glasses that you could see out of one eye at a time, and very ticking back and forth very quickly.
Yeah, those were migraine inducing.
Yeah, thanks, Will. It was the Sega Master System that I was thinking of. That had those shutter glasses as well. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, too early for its time. That idea, still too early.
One other thing about the Vectrex is that it. I'm not sure if it always did this or if this is a modern development, but it has sort of a buzz to it. If you turn it on, it just buzzes, and that there's actually it's like a design flaw inside. So I have a little kit. It has I think it's called the Vectrex Buzz. It has a little bee on the thing, but that at some point I will open it up and sort of do whatever isolation is needed to make it stop doing that buzz. But the buzz, in addition to the gyroscope headset and half the frame rate, I think that could probably give you a 2-second headache. But okay, let's see what else. I forget where this came up, but there was a BBC program called the Computer Program. Is this something anyone has seen before?
No.
So I think this was tied. It was somehow aligned with the launch of the BBC Micro, which I guess we must have talked about that. So that must have been the previous year. So it was a BBC program about sort of computers in society, and it used the BBC Micro as an example, but it was sort of covering all kinds of things. But it looks pretty interesting. So I would encourage people to check it out just to see what people thought in 1980. It sort of starts off with somebody like at the very beginning of the whole thing. It was cut into, I think, 10 episodes, but it's kind of a continual documentary. And it has somebody coming into a computer store, saying he wants to buy a computer, doesn't know anything about them, and is offered things like, an apple or an acorn or a pear, tangerine. But anyway, yes. So check that out. Let's see. I don't think I had much more to say on that. If nobody's seen it, then there's not much more to say about it. But it looks worthy.
It says the theme music composer was Kraftwerk. That's fun.
Oh wow! Yeah. Unexpected.
Yeah, it seems sort of timely. But I think this is quite well regarded, actually. For the people who were in the UK at the time, at least. And
we talked about it before. Like it was the
PBS.
British. Yeah, like it was the British version of the Computer Chronicles,
which didn't start until the next year.
Yeah, that's right. And in Canada, we had Bits and Bytes with Luba Goy. None of you have any idea what I'm talking about, but all the Canadians out there just had a little internal squee at that.
Yeah. The I think Computer Chronicles was a little bit more, I think, current market focused, and this was sort of like what are these computers that everyone's talking about?
Yeah, Computer Chronicles was very like newsy and very like stuffy. I don't know, that's not the right word, but
that's the right word.
Yeah, they were trying to be very professional and very like serious about it all.
I remember watching that show as a kid going like, I love computers, I want to know everything about them. Like, here's a TV show about computers. How are you making computers boring?
Yeah, exactly. It's two guys in suits sitting at a desk for an hour. Yeah. But what was fun about Bits and Bytes, the kind of Canadian version of this, is that they had like a kids section, and it was very much more about like, look how fun computers are. And they would even teach a little bit of programming. And anyway, it's off topic, but Bits and Bytes was fantastic. And yes, Luba Goy was a national treasure.
Mm-hmm. And almost any time I think of the Computer Chronicles, I think of there's one episode. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name is. Oh, John Dvorak, with trying to demonstrate the IBM PS2 and its wonderful modular design, and how businesses will want to get it because it's just very easy to swap parts in and out, and then he proceeds to fail to be able to get the thing open.
Yes, and spends 20 minutes trying to get the first latch to undo. Yeah, that show was honestly the best part of that show is all of the live demo failures on it. Like that, I think that was where society figured out that live demos always fail, because holy cow, a lot of people got embarrassed on live television trying to show off their computer. There was so much of that on that show. Just like these professionals scrambling to fill time as someone's frantically rebooting this thing that didn't work or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Okay, I think we're closing in on the end of the list that I had, although other people may have had other things. The last thing I was going to mention here was Minitel, which I didn't really experience. This was in France, but it was sort of it was essentially client server networking pre-internet. It's fairly broadly deployed in France because it operated over the phone lines and provided the like telephone book and Yellow Pages.
Yeah. One thing I'd love to hear from, if we have any French listeners, is how much they use this, because the current narrative about Minitel is that it was this huge deal. It was the internet before the internet. Everybody used it for everything. Everyone bought all their plane tickets and did all their banking and everything on Minitel. It was everywhere. And yet I don't know, you never hear people actually describe personal experiences with it. It's just this narrative that it was everywhere and it was this crazy advanced thing. So I would like to have someone close that loop. If you are a French person old enough to have lived during the time of Minitel, did people actually use it as much as people now say people used it?
Yeah. Maybe we need a brutal assessment of it.
Yes. Yes, paging Brutal Deluxe to a white courtesy phone, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there were sort of similar things. So there was something in let's see, Canada had something known as Alex that was sort of similar. That's what it says.
Wow, I've honestly never heard of that. So there you go. There's evidence that the narrative is not always true. I guess if it was in Quebec,
originally launched in Montreal, everything was in French.
Yeah, okay. So Quebec loves to have whatever France has. No offense to our Quebecois listeners, but that is a thing. And so that would make sense that they have that. But Canada has also always been quite siloed province to province. Like there was all kinds of stuff happening in Ontario and Quebec that, those of us in BC and Alberta just never heard of. Like it's like two completely different countries sometimes.
Yeah, foreign stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the 80s before the internet, it's a long way to Toronto from Vancouver, and so just nobody goes because it's too far.
Yeah. Okay. I think maybe anyone else have any other 1982 things they wanted to bring up?
No, it's just 1982 was basically when I started making money from writing computer programs while I was at university. So 81, 82 were formative years for me and my career. Plus, how else was I going to afford to go to the Sunnybank Tavern if I didn't write programs to get money?
Yeah, I probably got paid to write programs a little bit around that time, but it was really a little bit kids are comparing this to like paper route money, and so
this was more than paper route money. I was doing kiosk displays for the university's open days and presentations and things. I was also doing programs for various subjects. So as part of political science area, I wrote a program on how to do gerrymandering. So you've got your population display, and awesome. Then given the requirements of the seats that needed to be won by Party A or Party B. So lots of fun back then, sort of defining areas, counting, sort of going for defining contiguous areas on the map. But yeah. And lately I found out that some of the programming specs that I was given were obviously knockoffs from Mech software, which didn't really make it into Australia much. So Mech had one called The Pond, which looks remarkably like the specs I was given to write one for an environmental kiosk display. But that wasn't my problem.
Yeah. All right. There was one thing of actually, before I do that, Herb says, well, speaking of 1982, I guess, to invert what he actually said in the chat, that was probably also the year of the Naboo. Another thing that the Canadians will not have heard of somehow, even though it was a Canadian thing.
Yeah, and also apparently a pretty big Canadian thing. I think even Carrington had never heard of that one, and it was apparently an Eastern Canadian thing or an Ontario thing. Yeah, I don't know, never heard of it.
Yeah,
it was the 80s. Nobody had heard of anything. There was just no information.
But also, speaking of Herb, like one bit of feedback that I thought was sort of amusing was on, I guess this was on the Facebook page. Herb had pointed out something. It was a little clip from a British sketch comedy show called The Sketch Show, which I didn't know before this, but it is somewhat amusing. Which is the this little secretary clip, which features Lee Mack, if you know Lee Mack, a youthful Lee Mack, telling a secretary at a typewriter to like get with the future, and stop using a typewriter. And the ending is just wonderful. And I think I don't even know if I want to spoil it, except that it's an audio thing. But the caption was essentially like, someday no one's going to understand what this even is. but what has happened is that the secretary has finished sort of typing a line and then pushed the monitor off the desk.
Which anyone who's used a mechanical typewriter will get that joke.
Yes, typing class, yay.
Okay. Anyway, so that was from The Sketch Show, Series 1, Episode 2.
I'm willing to bet that anyone under 45 probably won't get that joke. Like, why did she push the monitor off the desk? Like, that's not going to make any sense.
Right.
I would be interested to see where that dividing line is for people who get that joke and people who don't.
Right. Yeah, I think I did briefly use a typewriter that I had to manually return.
Yeah.
Yeah, I failed. I couldn't take my eyes off the keyboard. I was a failure at touch typing. I just never trusted the keys. I knew that if I took my eyes away from the keyboard, the keys would move. So my 40-something years in programming, I've always had eyeballs on the keyboard.
I think it was
the keys haven't moved yet, so good job.
Yep. So you can thank me for that too. I may have done gerrymandering programs, but I personally stopped all the keys on the keyboard from moving.
Yes, thank you. Observer effect.
I'll add that to the business card.
Yeah, the first typewriter that I used was a real manual one. I forget the company, but at any rate, the keycaps were not big enough. So it was actually you had to give them a lot of pressure in order to actually make the hammer go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was easy to miss and just like wind up with your fingers like inside the mechanism without like between keys, which is really very unpleasant.
Yeah, the typewriter I learned to type on was like that. There was enough space between the keys to get your fingers in there, and you really had to hammer those early keyboards, and you could easily just jam your finger down between two keys. Yeah, you only did that a few times, and then you learned real good not to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Or hitting so many keys simultaneously that all the heads collided together to create a lump in front of the platen.
Yeah, you get those 2 or 3 hammers that all went splurk and jammed up on each other. That's a technical term.
Yep.
Splurk. I think I will maybe cut that little bit out and put that, post credits music. Everybody's splurk.
Everyone goes splurking.
Yeah. Okay, so now I guess we can move on to the items of interest in news, and so I guess the way we do this is just sort of go around to people who have news. Kay, did you have something that you wanted to do?
Probably, but don't make me go first.
Okay.
Also, is my video frozen?
It is.
It is.
But for me, it is.
Yeah. I think my camera's not on. That's all right. You can hear me. That's the good part.
Yeah, I thought actually this was a professional podcasting trick you had done. But okay, well, so Michael, we can start with you. What is your news?
Yes, I am news. Now, the one which caught my interest in the past week was for sideloading into the walled garden. Now, as much as I love my iPad, all my emulators are not on my iPad. So this is going to be that trick where
and now we do the technology of screen sharing.
Yep. So I'll just bring up the alt store. So sideloading for your iOS device. Now, this is one of several different packages that are available for the same purpose, but this is the one which I found to be the most useful, and also a matching YouTube video that for using it as well. Okay. But the reason I was wanting to do it is that my favorite Mac emulator is Mini VMac. So we have here Mini VMac for iOS. It's sorted out a lot of the cursor mouse issues that previous versions have had, and you can now get this running on your iPad, and it is very, very good to use. And if you want to just sort of see it in use rather than going through all that yourself, and of course I've lost that tab. Silly me. Courtesy of one of my favorite YouTube channels. We shall open the link.
And this is the stuff that you get when you watch us live on YouTube recording.
Yes. This
Yes.
is riveting audio
material.
content.
Yeah, I know. Michael is not very good at
Computers, ironically.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm retired. I've forgotten everything.
App Store, and specifically, they famously.
Okay.
So basically,
noted
over
the
at
audio.
Action Retro, Action Retro has a very good demonstration of sideloading Mini VMac on there. The important part is he demonstrates how to get the various ROMs into the system so that you can use, in his case, a Mac 2 as well as the Classic, and takes through several games. And the bit that I love the most is he actually loads an Apple II emulator into his emulated Macintosh, which he's sideloaded onto his iPad. So I suppose the next step to go is to then, on your emulated Apple II, to run a couple of the, there's a x86, not really an emulator, but programming environment there. There's a couple other almost emulators for earlier machines, but definitely would like to sort of try getting an extra level of the nested emulators. So if, like me, you've been frustrated with the iPad and emulators, this is a good start. So now it's time to see if some of the other machine emulators are available outside of jailbreaking. I used to use some other retro emulators on jailbroken iPads and iPhones. So it's now time to sort of see if we can start getting those pushed over to more current implementations and sideload those on.
So for anyone who's interested in the iOS ecosystem, the rules have actually recently changed. So the thing preventing emulators on iOS has always been that Apple does not allow execution of third-party code, which technically emulators do. But they've actually changed that now. They've added an exception specifically for retro emulation. So now the gates are open for all emulators. So now you can download Nintendo emulators and stuff for your iPad totally legitimately. Some of the companies like Nintendo keeps shutting down the Nintendo emulators for IP reasons, but it's no longer breaking the Apple rules.
Okay, so basically we can sort of like sideload the ones that are deemed naughty by the copyright holders.
I suppose, yeah. And if you like some of that stuff, I would take advantage of it while you can, because these sideloading schemes always operate around loopholes in the Apple Developer Certificate Program. So what they're doing
is one of the things you do have to go in and enable developer level. So
right. And what they're doing,
I can see that.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they are registered as an Apple developer, and they are opening their app as a public beta, and they're adding you to their public beta. So you have to accept their certificate, and basically that will go away at any time. Apple simply, once Apple catches on to particular versions of that, they simply revoke their certificates and they all stop working. So that's definitely, it's one of those things that will just go away at some point. But yeah, the good news is that emulators are now legal. That kind of thing will happen more easily now.
Yeah, I've got some, as you said, closed off. I got hold of them while they were available. So I've got a DOSBox one on an older iPad, and actually so I can run Windows 3.11 on my iPad, so I can run Civ 2 on my iPad.
Yeah, the other thing they used to
which
do
I think
was
is the best Civ game ever.
Yeah, prior to this, what people were doing was stealth emulating. So they would put out a version of a public domain arcade game, for example, that was actually running on MAME under the hood, with the wink understanding that you could then go into iTunes and load other MAME ROMs onto the file system of that app. And it would then boot those instead of the public domain arcade games. So they put out games like that specifically to get an emulator into the App Store under the radar. But yeah, again, eventually Apple catches them all and shuts them all down. But yeah, now that's all legal. So yeah, you can run MAME on iOS and stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was using sideloading, to get around that, and but if I don't have to, even better. But it always got to be a problem with same reason jailbreaking became a pain, as Apple were playing catch up.
Yeah, I mean they clearly want you not to do that. So. Yeah, I had some years ago. I think there was an Apple a game like that had an Apple IIGS emulator under the hood that I downloaded.
Yeah, the original FTA demo collection was released on Apple II, and it was running on ActiveGS underneath. So yeah, you could that was a way to get a GS emulator on your iPad.
You could load disk images and whatnot through the file system into the actual app.
Yeah, I still have that original app on my current iPad from several years ago. It's long gone out of the App Store now, but I still have it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't ever reinstall the iPad, you can keep those old apps around.
Yep.
Until the battery melts.
Always handy to have frozen tablets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I have one that's stuck on iOS 5. It's like iPad 1. But.
Yeah, I still like Michael. I have an old iPad that has DOSBox and Ultima 6 running on it that I don't dare touch, because if I do anything to it, I won't ever be able to get that working again.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I will go next. My thing is relatively short. I just came across a video recently posted 12 days ago as we're recording, investigating the Commodore thermostat. So there's a thermostat that is Commodore branded, microelectronic thermostat, and the point of the video is basically just to ask the question: is this the Commodore? Is this is this our Commodore? And it's got the little Chicken Lips logo on it. And the answer is yes. I mean, Commodore was a calculator company, and they were just repurposing electronics. But it's a pretty funny object.
It's kind of a neat looking thing. I like the mechanical sliders to set the time and stuff. It's neat. Commodore made a lot of weird stuff. They really did.
Yeah. I guess we've talked about file cabinets and furniture and calculators.
Yeah. Yeah, famously, that's why the PET looks like the way it does, because Commodore was a file cabinet company, and so they had their sheet metal shop make the cases for them because they were set up to do it.
Yeah. Just thinking back to the computer program opening, that was another thing that the computer store person offered the clueless customer coming in. Well, maybe they want a pet, and the guy comes in who came in and said, "Well, I really kind of had my heart set on a computer, but."
Well, what's great about this Commodore thermostat is that you could probably put it in your house today, because furnace interfaces have really not changed in almost 100 years. Like, it's generally still a couple of wires for the heater for the furnace side of it, a couple of wires for the air conditioning side of it to engage one or the other. Like, they're really very, very simple. If you've ever installed like a Nest or one of these high-tech modern thermostats, you pull the thing off the wall and it's like 4 wires, and it's the same 4 wires that have been there for 50 years. So I bet this would still work, which would be
great.
Pretty extreme retro cred there. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
They're only modern on the outside of the drywall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
everything running downstairs to the air conditioner or to the furnace is the same couple of strands of wire.
Yeah, because originally, of course, thermostats were a bimetal strip in a coil with a mercury switch, and so when the temperature dropped, this spring would unwind and trip the mercury switch, which would turn on in the furnace. And so it's fundamentally still the same twisted pair 24-volt AC switch wires that run to the thermostat. But anyway, neat.
Yep. So this is the Commodore History channel on YouTube. So you can find that there. Okay, Quinn, you have the next thing.
Yeah, also a short one. So we've talked a lot about the 9918A graphics chip here on the show, and its modern successor, the F18A, famously the graphics chip in the TI-99-4A, and various arcade machines and so on. Well, so the successor to that chip, which I'm mildly obsessed with, and so I look up anything related to it, was the Yamaha 9958. And they did not make a lot of these chips. I think they may have been used in a couple of arcade games. I'm not sure. I think they may have made it into the MSX2, because the MSX1 had the 9918A in it. So it was in a few things, but not nearly as many as the 9918 was. It wasn't as successful, but it's a very neat chip. On paper, at least, the specs on this chip are really, really incredible. And so I'm kind of obsessed with it, because I would someday love to build a retro computer around this chip. So someone, however, has made an expansion board for the Commodore 64 using this chip. And so it's all on GitHub. So it's all open source hardware. All the Gerbers and everything are here. If you want to order up your own circuit boards and make one of these yourself, you absolutely can. I haven't looked in a while, so I don't know how easy these 9958s are to get. I looked for a little while when I was making my retro computer, and at that time they were incredibly difficult to get. I couldn't find one. So I don't know if that has changed, but presumably if you build this project, you have to source this chip yourself. I think all the other chips on this are modern, except the Yamaha chip, of course. So, but yeah, it's got some demos here of the kinds of things the chip can do, and I just thought this was really cool. So if you want to make your Commodore graphics even better, here's a way to do that. So yeah, it's a neat thing. This chip, just so people understand the broad strokes, it was very much the peak 2D accelerated graphics. So we're talking about tile maps, parallax scrolling, lots of moving sprites, that kind of thing. So if you're thinking about kind of Super Nintendo kind of era of graphics, the peak of 2D before everything went to 3D graphics. That's kind of what these chips were designed to accelerate, and they're neat. What I tried to also find, however, was there was a YouTube series devoted to this chip that basically makes the statement that this chip sucks. And he goes through all in really gory detail. It's like 4 hours long in multiple parts, this YouTube series. I watched it all because of course I did. And he goes into really gory detail about why this chip wasn't more successful. And he thinks it's because actually the performance of it is really, really poor. It has some pretty fundamental design flaws, according to him, that created massive wait states when you were trying to change palettes and load new tiles and stuff. And it had some really fundamental issues that made it actually run really, really poorly in real world game development kind of scenarios. So I tried to find a link to that video series. Unfortunately, my Googling failed me in the exhaustive 10 seconds of research I did while we were setting up the stream. But that video series does exist. So if you Google why the 9958 sucks, you'll probably find it.
Is it possibly this one, the V9958, is a better
yes,
design? No, really?
That is it. Your Google foo is superior to my own. Yes. That is it, and he makes a pretty compelling case, I got to say, because I always thought this chip was just amazing. Because on paper it is, like you look at number of colors and resolution and number of tiles, and depth of sprites and number of moving sprites at a time. All the numbers look amazing on it, but when you actually look at all the little restrictions that get invoked when you try to use all these features, it just starts running really, really slowly, basically. So, it's an interesting story, and I'd be interested to see if it's usable in a modern way as well as I think it is, or as well as I hoped that it was.
Just throw a couple more gigabytes at it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not it's some pretty fundamental design things, it sounds like. But anyway, so that's it. I just thought this was a really neat project to stick a 9958 in a Commodore 64.
Very cool. All right, let's see. Kate, was there anything that you wanted to discuss?
I don't. This sort
the
of
answer can be no.
Sort of vague, but
Okay.
I have been. I got into. I've been really enjoying Blue Sky for retrocomputing content. Once they did the starter pack thing, and you could just subscribe to retrocomputing with one click. You all of a sudden have 50 people who post mostly about interesting retrocomputing things. And I subscribed to, 3 or 4 starter packs about old video games and retrocomputing, and all of a sudden, like, the internet is interesting again. So I have enjoyed that, and it feels like Twitter, but 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that is my vague little recommendation, is if you are a social media person and you miss the when Twitter was fun, then
I hadn't got round to doing that, but yes, that sounds like something that's good. Yeah, back as you said, back when it was peak Twitter as opposed to gutter Twitter.
You just look for the starter pack, and there's a bunch of different starter packs about retrocomputing and old video games, and it's like each random person's different idea of who should be followed. So great, follow them all. If some of them aren't so good, you can unsubscribe. So,
that's neat. I didn't know there were starter packs like that that's a really good idea for social media, because to get you going on who to follow.
Yes. And there's also the opposite of a starter pack, which is a block list. So
I have heard of those.
You can also subscribe to. I never want to hear from anyone who is a Nazi, and then that's it. So it can help hear from the kind of people you want to hear. I want social media to be fun and not be like angry at me. So anyway,
I think
that has helped
McAdams
me.
Has
I'm sorry.
list.
Go ahead. What's that?
Oh, I was just gonna add Ron McAdams has a fairly large curated list. That's where I started. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just being there again and seeing other people doing their interesting projects, even if it's on a platform that I don't particularly care about or whatever, has inspired me to I should start doing things again. So I'm getting back into little projects of my own. I'm trying to get the Atari 8-bit bot working again, and I'm playing with Fast Basic, which I had never really gotten to work on on my system before. So anyway, I feel like inspired by those people to do fun things again. So
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I had too much difficulty breaking through the Mastodon inertia, just sort of like trying to connect. But yeah, so I'm on Threads for stuff other than retro computing. But if there's some good starter packs over on Blue Sky, I think I'll go and dust off the account over there and get going. But yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I sort of feel like Blue Sky has kind of only just recently won the Gravity, competition. So
It exploded all of a sudden, like all of the journalists and everything are all suddenly moving to it. Like really the momentum suddenly is there for it.
The network effect thing finally just happened. Yeah.
Finally.
And it has that non-meta element about it, which Threads still does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in 5 years, it's going to suck and it's going to get ruined. And some corporate overload is going to screw it up. And the Nazis are going to find a way to find us all. But in the meantime, it's fun.
Yeah. Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. Yeah, my impression though has been pretty similar. Of like the energy has returned a bit. I mean, it's a little hard to keep up with even, but it is fun to see what people are posting about. Except for people posting about the fact that they're no longer going to be able to sell things from the UK to the rest of the EU because the whatever the import-export bureaucracy has gotten too big. So if you're going to buy anything from, the Future is 8-bit and a couple of those other people, and you're in the EU, and you either are here on the stream or listened, or I got this edited and out in time, order quick, because I think they're about to stop selling to the EU. But anyway, whatever. That was an unnecessary tangent.
No such thing.
Okay, so I think that's probably good enough for the items of interest and news. And so now, a word from our sponsor. Okay, which sometimes is considered the halfway point, but I think it will be much closer to the end. All right. Let's see. Oops. I'll fix a couple of tab issues here. And we're back. Okay, so the host retro computing gift idea this time, partly in honor of Kay's joining us, but also just because I think it's pretty cool, is the Atari joystick decanter set.
Oh my lord!
It's not cheap, but it's pretty cool.
It's not cheap. It's not good.
I kind of
funny,
love
though.
this. I haven't. I'm guessing the quality is terrible, but otherwise, if the quality was decent, I kind of love this.
So what it is basically it's a decanter in the shape of an Atari, whatever. What is that, CX40? I don't know, the joystick, and then with a couple of glasses along with it. So Kay, you have opinions. I mean, like this is coming from Atari.com, which is a dubious relationship to the Atari of the past. But
I call this the company that calls itself Atari.
Yeah.
A company that I have real mixed feelings about them, but they kind of, remember dogs barking. They kind of do that thing where like if it's a noun, we'll put our logo on it. They recently they're also selling hot sauce, Atari branded hot sauce, which is it's stupid. And they've done some other just really curious things. And this I put this in the file. I guess this is a cute gift idea or something, but I really want them to stick to making games that are better, game systems that are something other than the more versions of the Atari 2600. And they're sort of trying to do that. Then they get distracted with things like the joystick decanter set.
I mean, like branding exercises like this can be fun if they're executed well. But I mean, for $125, like there's no way this is of any kind of decent quality. I mean, whiskey decanters they're high-end items. They like a nice crystal decanter. You're going to pay a lot more than $125 for it. So this is just going to be some cheap glass thing. That's probably paper thin. But I kind of love the idea because the its classic Atari joystick is actually kind of the perfect shape for a decanter. And I'm a kind of a whiskey nut, so I kind of love this idea. But yeah, I can tell from the pictures that the execution is not going to be good. It's too bad.
I wouldn't mind taking it for a test run, though.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't kick it out of bed, but
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll have an old fashioned made with it just to see if it's any good.
Yeah, just to make sure it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be really cool, but yeah, it's not. I'm guessing the cap's probably plastic too, because it doesn't look like. So it has to have a proper whiskey decanter. Has to have a tapered crystal neck, and that's what seals. It's taper on taper is how it seals. There's no gasket or rubber or plastic or anything in the cap, and you can see this cap
shot.
is
This shot here, basically, the shot that we just had there. Yeah, this one that definitely to me looks like it's a plastic stopper, not a ground crystal.
I mean, the whole thing might be plastic, actually. I can't tell. The glasses look like they're just glass with a laser printed logo on it, but the actual decanter might be plastic.
The decanter I'm liking. The glasses.
Oh, it does say glass? Okay. All right. So it's glass at least, but it's certainly not crystal, and it's probably pretty thin.
And it's terrible for a game of Pitfall.
Yeah, no, yeah. Your hand's bleeding, it shatters. It's just terrible.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the other things that they sell that is a little bit more appropriate is the like the 2600 plus console. I'm kind of curious to know what you think about this, Kay. But like my initial thoughts about this it basically it appears to be even maybe a full size Atari 2600, but it has things like HDMI output, and it does appear to actually run cartridges. Like, so you could use your old cartridges for either a 2600 or 7800 in this. Which so that I think I could see a use for that. That's not terrible. I mean, like, you have a bunch of cartridges. Your actual 1980s Atari 2600 is now dead, and this would be a way that you could sort of recreate that. But I don't know what I'm not much in the Atari world, so I don't know what the community thoughts are on this.
But I'm sure it's fine. My personal, I am personally interested in the Atari computers, and less to very not at all interested in the 2600. And my problem with the company that calls itself Atari and the previous versions of it is they have gone for years and years creating different iterations of the Atari 2600. Oh, here it is in a mini version. Oh, here it is in a joystick with a HDMI cable. Here it just again and again. Jack's Games will come up with 10 different versions of Atari 2600 things, and I'm sure they're fine, and I'm sure it's perfect for the people who have that exact nostalgia or want to play combat. Yeah. But it's like it's been done. It's been done, and I wish that they would move on, and they're kind of starting to. A few months ago, they came out with the Atari 400 Mini, which is a computer. It's based on the Atari 400 computer. Great. It's that's progress, and it's I have one, and it's a fun little machine. They just came out with the Atari 7800 Plus or something like that, which is the 7800 was a It was kind of based on the 2600. It was very much based on the 2600, but at least it was a different console. It played different games. So they are finally expanding into other areas. So that's the kind of thing that excites me. Another 2600, even if it finally has a cartridge slot, that is less interesting to me. I want to tell you a quick story. Yes. Earlier this year at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, I did a couple of interviews, and I interviewed a guy. Trying to find it. I interviewed a gentleman who worked not at Atari, but for a company that works with Atari to actually create the mini. I think they created the Atari 400 Mini. They also worked to do, I think, the Commodore Mini that had come out previously. So and the guy I interviewed was called Ben Jones. He works for a company called Playon, Plaion, and they're the company that kind of behind the scenes creates these things. And he told me this story, and I think it was for the 7800 plus, but I don't remember. But it was a cartridge, one of the cartridge based units, and they were creating this thing where you could put a new piece of hardware where you could put old cartridges in it and play them. So he has a test unit, a beta unit. He's got all these old cartridges, and he puts in, combat or whatever, and turns it on, and it plays. Great, sounds good. Takes another one, so he's doing this, and at one point he puts in one game. We'll say Choplifter. I don't know. I'm sure he remembers. I don't remember. He put in Choplifter, and it played a different game. And he's like, oh, that's weird. This Choplifter cartridge has the wrong ROM in it, right? So he goes and he puts it into a real old machine, and it plays the Choplifter it's supposed to play. So,
oh no.
So I think you've already figured out what happened. They were, instead of reading the entire cartridge, it was just reading the header and then playing the game off of stored internal ROMs.
Wow. And
so he calls the developer and he says, hey, so you have all the stored internal ROMs for every game? And they're like, yeah, it's just faster that way. It's easier. He's like, what about Mario Brothers? It's like, yeah, we did that too. It's like, no, you can't do that. So they were going to put an IP that they no longer had licensed from other companies into this machine, and that idea quickly went away.
Whoopsie.
I'll put a link to that interview in the show notes. Anyway,
was it the Magnavox Odyssey 2 that did that too? Was it there was some console that had, where the cartridge was just the
original Odyssey had the cartridges, and they were just, the pins on the cartridge were just bridged in different combinations. All the games were actually in the console. There was only like 8 games or whatever, because that was how many they could fit in the console, and there was never any additional cartridges. But yeah, I'm with you, Kay, on the whole 2600 thing. Like, they have beat that horse to death so many times. Like, it's not hard to play those games. Like, if you want to play every Atari 2600, there's so many ways to do it.
And Atari did so many other interesting things. The Atari XLs and XEs and the Atari ST line and the portfolio, and there's other wells to go to. And anyway, so in answer to your question, no, I'm not personally excited by the 2600 plus, but okay. If somebody wants that under their holiday tree, then good for them.
Yeah, I guess probably I can. One way I can sort of see that is that they're aiming for the thing that hit the mass market. So there's going to be a lot of people who will recognize the 2600 who have never seen an ST. So.
I mean, the 2600 was such a cultural phenomenon that I guess there's still a lot of nostalgia for it, and people will buy that who wouldn't buy any of these other type retro nostalgia devices, I guess. But yeah, surely they've saturated the market by now with those things, with all the new versions of it that keep coming out.
Yeah. All right. So when you're done passing on buying everything at the Atari.com store, we can turn our attention to eBay. Let's see. I guess okay. Going through this alphabetically, K, you are first among us, it seems. But you have not put a link there. Do you have an eBay auction?
12 hours ago, I didn't know I was going to be here, so no.
Yep. Okay. Right. Yeah. No, that's fine. Quinn, do you?
No, I never have eBay
right,
items.
See, there you go. Yeah. Everything's fine. So we'll start with Michael. Michael, you can start with your eBay item.
Yeah, I'm just refreshing it now. Yep, my item, yes, has really gone all out for this one.
And now's the time in the program where we
earlier about having siloed. So screen sharing is working.
It is.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, we were talking about before about a lot of us were siloed by our machine type, but there were publications available that crossed the silos. So one of those here was the Australian Personal Computer magazine, and previously it was the Australian Computing. So this one here is for just 4 issues from 85, 86, 89 and 90. So if you were wanting to check out what was happening on the Australian retro computer scene, this will give you a good snapshot of things that were happening. So probably a little bit more expensive for those overseas to pick up, but this was one of my favorite magazines from back in the day for reading. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. This was before I was really back into retro computing as a hobby. And as we all know, magazines and books are exceedingly heavy, especially magazines. And as I said, a lot of my old magazines from back in the day didn't make a 1 or 2 transfers. So I've only been scanning what I've had held on since recovered. But yeah, it's always handy to sort of like get a bit of a perspective or a good start. This could be a retro reading starter pack for you.
Cool. All right.
And that's all I've got, because all the other ones I had have basically been bought by others and not me.
Yeah, though I think we were talking, I think, about this a little bit ahead of recording, that almost everybody who ever listens to this, particularly on the audio feed, will only hear about auctions that are no longer running.
So that must have been when I was having a few little connection problems. Yes.
Oh, no, it's still what all I'm saying is that
I know.
The point of these is essentially to talk about things that are interesting rather than things that are available to buy.
Yeah. So, I've taken some of Carrington's hints in the past along these lines of getting a whole 12 months of a particular computer magazine, so that I can basically just go and pick up that issue for that month. And if you can put in the discipline and pick up the January magazine in January and have it, say, from many decades ago. Last one I did on this was a Tandy magazine. It's actually quite enjoyable to sort of just see what was happening 30, 40 years ago, along those lines, and just sort of reading it, sitting back, pouring a drink from my Atari decanter.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So I have a couple. I'm not gonna do all of the ones that I located, but the first was I was looking at so we were talking about the Commodore Max machine. So I was taking a look to see, are there any of these available? And they all seem there kind of are some available, but they are expensive. This one that I found on eBay is $950 plus 75 shipping, and this was the cheapest one I saw on eBay, actually.
Wow.
It's nice. I mean, it's got a pretty good looking box. It's got all the packing materials, joystick, manuals.
Well, that joystick is a weird looking thing. The button is triangular, or the stick is triangular, and the button is centered at the top. Wow, that's terrible.
I think that was actually, I believe that was a relatively common model of Commodore joystick. I have a couple of these.
Really? Oh, I've never seen that before. Huh.
Specifically
It
designed
never
to
felt
not
very
enjoy
pleasant.
the game.
Yeah, that just looks like an ergonomic nightmare, like something designed to be uncomfortable.
Our games are shit, so we don't want you playing them for too long.
That's right. But anyway, so I guess if you were intrigued by the Max machine, this might temper your intrigue a little bit. But and it's like the other ones I found are more like $2,000, $4,000. But so one thing I thought was possibly interesting is so this was in the Japanese market, and so I thought it might be interesting to take a look at whether you can buy it from Japan, because sometimes that kind of stuff can wind up being easier. So there are a couple of reshipper, sort of intermediate shopping sites that I'm aware of that can do stuff like this. Buy is one of them that I've got up here, where there's a Commodore Max if you know how to search for it. Buy will link you to a number of different possible vendors. This particular one is on Mercari. But so if you just search for Commodore Max, that was good enough to bring up this machine and a couple of other like cartridges and things. But so this is about the same price in the end. This is coming up as equivalent to 839 US dollars, but and then you have to get it shipped from Japan, which is not necessarily simple, but or at least it's simple but not necessarily cheap. But I've got stuff from Bai and what's their parent company? I forget now, but Tenso, and I've been relatively happy with those things shipped that way. So
this is
if
probably
you could look for this.
This might be 220 though, power then that you would need if you ordered this from Japan.
Good question.
I guess it depends. Forgive my ignorance, Japanese listeners, but I think, is it the case that Japan actually has both? Like the part of the island is 110 and part of it is 220 because they had this weird competing standard thing, and now that they kind of have both everywhere. I don't know. But then I think, are they NTSC or PAL? I don't remember.
I think NTSC is the video standard.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But,
okay. So maybe it's okay because the power supply is probably universal and then the video is going to be NTSC. So maybe it would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Tron in the comments says, yeah, Japan is 110, but part of it is 50 hertz and part of it is 60 hertz. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Because they had, different standards early on that kind of merged. So now they're stuck with both.
And then going back to the comments on the Commodore joystick, Santo says that anyone who's used the Commodore joystick can no longer lift a decanter.
Fair, yes. Those 2600 joysticks.
I thought maybe the Max was for Max hand pain.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I do. If there are things that are in Japan, it's not bad to take a look at, particularly Yahoo Japan auctions. But this happened not to be there. And then there's another reshipper from that's kind of similar to Buy called Zen Market, which largely serves the same, does the same stores and serves the same things. Has a slightly different mechanic for how you pay. But anyway, so I thought maybe I would be able to show people that it's cheaper, but in fact, I can't show that it's cheaper, but at least it's possibly interesting if you're looking for, rare Japanese consoles. That
it might be. $830. Like I bet you could get it shipped for less than the difference from the eBay auction, which would be $120 US. You could probably ship it for less than that. Yeah. It's probably not very heavy or very big.
And I have had a number of things shipped from both of these companies, and I've been super impressed, like way more impressed than any other shipping I've ever received. So, okay. Yeah. Let's see. What else did I want to mention? There's, maybe I'll mention this one. So the next one I have here is a vintage Apple II Plus. But what makes it sort of special is that it is a movie prop from the Pirates of Silicon Valley. So it is apparently actually the one used. Here's the picture of the owner with the person who ran in the 1984 Apple ad, and a picture of the Apple II Plus in the movie. I don't know. We have to believe them, but
it's now missing 2 keys, so they've wrecked it since it was in the movie. Apparently,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Pass.
But, so it's hard to know actually what to think about this because these are all, for the most part, this is about kind of provenance and nostalgia. It's not something you're going to be daily using.
Well, and without any documentation that this was in the movie, I don't know. That's her stretch to just say it was.
Yeah. Well, the person did print out something that they typed that says this certifies that it is a thing, and then has some screenshots.
Okay. Some screenshots of a YouTube clip of the movie with the YouTube UI still in it. I mean, come on. This is
They could go to the trouble of mocking up a rental agreement that mentions the serial number.
I mean, there is an established paperwork system for movie props. Like if you buy Indiana Jones's whip, like there is an accepted provenance system for that to prove that it was, and whether it was a hero prop or a regular one, whether it was screen used or whether it was a backup and so on. Like there's a whole system for this that this guy is just not in. So like he doesn't have any of the right paperwork for a proper movie prop. So I mean, this is just all hearsay as far as I would say. Save your money.
Yeah. He says that it appeared this particular unit appeared in the documentary Pilots of Silicon Valley.
Sure.
Loose
You say so.
use of the word documentary.
Yeah. Okay.
He says prop, I hear piece of the true cross. Okay.
Yeah. Don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure if I don't believe it, but I wouldn't stake money on it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
It doesn't
stake
even work. It does
$340 on
not
it.
beep and only outputs a white screen.
Yeah, well, and there's two keys missing, and the top is broken. So, which it was not in the movie. In the movie, it looks pristine because, of course, it did. It's supposed to be new in the movie. So, either I don't know. This, I mean, at best, he's telling the truth, and he has wrecked it since it was in the movie. So then, why would you want it? Even if it was in the movie, you don't want. Oh well, this used to look nice, and it was in this movie. Not going to pay extra for that.
Okay, I think there are only two more things that I wanted to point out. One is this. So the auction says Epson QX10 vintage computer working condition, blah blah blah, and it actually has the QX10 box. The Epson QX10 has shown up a few times. It's a CPM machine by Epson. The main reason I wanted to bring this up is that. Here, they have a photo of it. I'm showing on the stream the photo of it, and when I look at it, I think, oh wait, but that's not a QX10. The box says QX10. This is a QX16, and the QX16 is, I think, a more desirable, rare, interesting computer. This actually not only had a Z80 in it, but also an 8088, I guess. It was able to run DOS 2.1 as well as CPM. So this was them sort of trying to cross platforms and remain, sort of viable. But for some reason, it went into a QX10 box. So if you were looking for a QX16 and didn't care that the box didn't match, this might not be so bad. It's selling for $500 or best offer, but I think it is a relatively hard to find machine if you were looking for it. So.
Well, it checks off our bingo cards for computer I've never heard of. Actually, there's been two in this episode. This and the Commodore Max. I had never heard of either of those until this show. So,
and it's only $140 to have it shipped to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, these things are heavy. The QX10 at least is quite heavy. I have had occasion to move it from one place to another, and it always surprises me. It doesn't look as heavy as it is, but.
So is the auction listing for a QX10? Like, so this is a case of this thing. Okay, so this thing is actually more desirable than the person realizes, so it might be underpriced. Is that
that was my spin on it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. He thinks he has a QX10, I guess, because that's what the box said.
Nobody tell him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't find any. I don't think it says anywhere. I mean, like maybe a little badge on the back it says QX16, but so he's got some photos of a number. Let's see, where is that? Here, it says Epson model Q801A, but that's the monitor.
Oh, okay.
So, and it just says Epson on the front. But the arrangements of the disk drive and the vents are the QX16 and not QX10.
Okay.
So
I bet you're
it
the
does
only
work.
person who has ever figured that out. This would have sold to somebody else who thought it was a QX10 because it doesn't say QX16 on it anywhere. And
Yeah.
they would have gone through the rest of their lives thinking they owned a QX10 until Paul came along. Well, those vents aren't right. That's why you're the host.
All right, let's see. And then I guess, oh, well, okay. I saw this. This is Softside 1983 basic code book. I think this is, so Softside was a magazine, like a, sort of early 80s computer magazine that tended to have programming listings in it. So, Kay, I'm sure you've come across many of these. Maybe
Yes, I
scanned
have.
many of them yourself. This was sort of an excerpt from a larger one that has just this. It's called Relax. It's got 3 A's in it, and what you're supposed to do is type this in. It's supposed to be sort of like, I guess, kind of like a meditation aid or something like that, or just like a calming tool. But just the idea that you have a type in program that like you have to find 15 typos in first.
Nothing's more relaxing than typing hundreds of lines of code from a dot matrix listing, finding the bugs that you typed in, and then getting it to run.
Yep.
Yes.
So it does exist on the Internet Archive. So you can experience this without having to buy this. I guess looks like Jason uploaded it, but anyway, I found that amusing, and I think I'll leave it there. That's good enough for my eBay picks now. And so I guess actually we are at the point of closing discussions. We have not succeeded in making this a short episode, but it's a slightly shorter episode. So
A success nonetheless.
Yeah. So alphabetically, I guess we will start with you, Kay. Any sort of closing notes or thoughts or things you're doing that are interesting?
I am happy to be back talking to y'all. On the Antic podcast, as some of you may know, I've been doing interviews with people for years, and people who did things with Atari computers and other computers. And my goal for this year was to do 15 interviews, and that was a goal that I set, December of.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Now, not only did the
His Antic co-hosts have had something to say about that.
yeah, okay. Here we go. All right, welcome back.
Your Antic co-hosts didn't like you turning up here.
That's right.
I'll start again. I don't know where you lost
Sure,
me.
that's fine.
Yeah, December last year, 15 interviews.
I'll just try to start over for easy editing. My goal for 2024 was to do 15 interviews for the Antic podcast. And come around middle of October, I realized I had published none. And if I was going to succeed in my goal, I needed to get on it. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to publish an interview every Friday for the rest of the year. And I've been doing that. And one that I published most recently, it was a great interview, and I just want to share it because it deserves to get out of the little pocket of Atari people. I interviewed the Mary Eisenhart, who was the editor of Microtimes magazine, which was a California-based computer magazine. Advertising supported, completely free. You could pick it up in computer stores or music shops and that sort of thing. And this thing ran from 1984 until 1998. And Mary was the editor for more than 180 issues. And she just gave a fascinating interview about her time running this magazine and being this little scrappy magazine that was competing against the likes of Byte and Dr. Dobbs and all the big guys, and it helped her a lot that they were in California where all the computer companies were. Anyway, she just gave a great interview, and I just love her so much, and I want people to hear this interview. So that's something I've done recently that I am proud to have published.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I've been enjoying your sudden splurge or surge of interviews.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. I'm way behind in listening to them, but I always, just appreciate the fact that they are there, and they're, we are not going to miss the opportunity now to talk to these people, or to hear them talk at least.
Yeah.
And that obviously is a large part of the driving force here, is that the numbers of these people that are still available to talk are diminishing.
They are. Yep. Indeed.
All right, Michael, any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just really coming to grips with retirement, being no longer working for the man, whoever he was. But just trying to sort things out, find things that have disappeared into the bowels of the 8-bit bunker or the back of the garage. But just trying to get things sorted that way. Once I get that sorted, then there's all my programming and game notes from the 80s and early 90s, which some of them I want to get from the note stage and actually get something going, a small range of strategy games and some ideas that I've got for upcoming basic 10-liner competition, which Kay has done so well in the past. So I'll see if I can step in and throw a few good ones in.
Nice. That's not until usually
April.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, earlier. Yeah. It's announced in April, but trust me, that may still not be enough lead time for me.
Right. Well, I have
It's more than a line per month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm looking forward to that this year. I haven't done it in a few years. I think it's last time I entered, I was using Turbo Basic XL on the Atari, which I was enjoying. I came in second place in a category or two. I don't remember. It was some games that I was proud of, and I was like, compared to like the incredible programming aptitude of some of these people, I came in at the top 3. I was just like thrilled.
Yep.
And then I just wasn't in the mood or whatever for a few years, and now I'm trying to learn Fast Basic, which is the new hotness that's kind of built on top of some of the features of Turbo Basic XL. So actually now I knowing that the contest is coming around again in April or so, that gives me a few months to figure it out and maybe be able to enter something next year.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I was predominantly analyst programmer, systems programmer in a corporate environment, documents, high-speed printing. So I want to sort of like get out of that sort of programming and get back into something a little bit more entertaining, which is where when I was learning computers back in the 80s. But we'll see how we go. There's one idea, a couple of ideas I had started doing in previous ones, but never got to that stage. So I shall see you. So 10. I'll duel you, Kay, at 10 lines rather than 10 paces.
Excellent.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Look forward to it.
When you say that Fast Basic is the hot new thing, is it actually a modern creation, or is it the hot new thing from 1987?
It's a modern creation.
Oh, okay.
Modern being in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have called it compiled basic. Really, it's a P code thing, but it runs a lot faster than an interpreted basic, and it has some features where, if you want to use player missiles, aka sprites, traditionally you need to just do all these peeks and pokes and administrations to make it. And this, it's like 2 commands, and you've got everything set up. So it makes things a lot easier and faster.
So that's eligible for the 10-liner comp?
It is. It is.
Excellent.
And in the last couple of years, most of the Atari entries are done with fast basic because it's so much better. It's almost like cheating, but it's not. So
Yeah. I was going to say there's a line there somewhere, like a line 10. You know,
if
do
they've
the
drawn the
Space
line
Invaders
and
game.
it's allowed, then I'm happy to step up to the line. But I'm just this time round it's just going to be in pure good old fashioned AppleSoft Basic.
great. Well, you're not going to win anything because AppleSoft Basic's terrible.
Yeah, well,
but I mean, it's fun, and if you can make a decent, semi-decent game in 10 lines of AppleSoft Basic, then
the
you're
one
a better
that I have
programmer
in
than me,
mind,
'cause-
I've also set myself the goal of that there'll be no if statements in it. So.
If statements are particularly bad in AppleSoft in a 2-line contest because they terminate the line.
Yes.
So you always have to figure out some way to work around it so that you're looping instead of ifing.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. So I'm trying to write it so that there's no ifs, no go-tos, and I'm actually going to try and do it without go subs as well. But as you said, mainly for precisely that reason that their statement ending commands.
So
I've got 10 lines, and got 10 lines, and I'm going to stuff as much stuff into it as I can.
Are there modern or more modern versions of Apple Basics like has happened to the Atari?
I don't think so. I have not heard of any.
There was one which I took and ran with, but again, that was back in the 80s. It was what I call structured basic, which is basically a preprocessor to AppleSoft Basic, so that allowed you to have if then else and other constructs that aren't available in AppleSoft. But it actually produced AppleSoft, which I then would run through a compiler. So I don't know if SBasic that I created would be valid because it's structured, indented,
And there was like the Beagle basic compiler and some things like that. But I mean, I think the reason there aren't is because these modern basics for like Commodore and Atari are unlocking the powers of the machine that the original basics didn't, because the original basics were primitive and the machines were powerful. AppleSoft is actually quite a powerful basic, but the machine is primitive. So there's really nothing more to unlock. Like AppleSoft can already do everything the machine is pretty much capable of. Maybe shape tables, but shape tables suck. So I think that's why
shape tables don't fall under the rules for this one because you can't poke in machine language or other objects, and you can't preload them or anything along those lines. So shape tables, you'd have to get a special exemption on that. But I'm intending to sort of like avoid that as well. But we'll see how we go. I shall follow the lead of the master and hopefully gun him down and take his place.
I'm not worried. I'm not the master, so
yeah. I know that there have been, a few non-basic languages. So Plasma is one of the ones that comes to mind, which is, that's supposed to be sort of pan-Apple programming language. That's David Schmenk, I think.
Yes, it is.
Wrote that. But it's not. I don't think it's related at all to BASIC. It's just it's just another programming language. And Martin Hay had one too, but I've forgotten what it is.
I just liked my SBasic because I got a little bit silly there. I added the if then maybe statement. So.
All right. Let's see. For me, I guess the main thing that is on my mind at the moment is that it may be. I think I may have mentioned this already, but somewhat well known that all of my various retrocomputing things live in my office at work, and we have recently learned that my department is moving to a different building starting in the fall.
Oh wow!
And so my office will be much less large and with much more. The walls, many of them will be glass. So I've got some. I'm going through. I'm beginning to sort of like spread out the things that I have, so that I can figure out which things go with which other things, and then actually address them so that I can get them out of my possession, or someplace else. But so I'm actually kind of looking forward to that in a way because I get to see all these things, but under relatively stressful conditions. So.
So you're going through your collection, but with a gun to your head.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, let's be honest, the only way it was ever going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the main thing for me. Oh, and the other thing is that it's winter and my furnace died. So apart from that, those are the things. But
it's was it because you're using the Commodore thermostat?
it's probably it. Yeah. So it's still trying to load the repair program.
Classic.
Yes. Okay, Quinn, any closing thoughts?
So it's been pretty light for me retro-wise lately. Top of the to-do list is our fellow co-host Blake sent me a little care package of some good Commodore games that I want to try out. So I'm going to, one of these days, get that onto an SD card and go try that. And the other interesting retro thing I did is I watched the movie Micromen. And I watched it because the last time we recorded, Paul, you were playing a clip from that movie directly from YouTube onto the stream. And I noticed in the UI when you were doing that the entire film is actually on YouTube. So in fact, there's a couple of copies of it that the BBC seems not too terribly worried about taking down. So, but I would still, if anyone is interested in that movie, I would watch it now because those things do have a tendency to go away. But yeah, there's a couple of really nice renders of the full film on there. And I watched it and it was super enjoyable. I got to say, it is very much the British version of the Pirates of Silicon Valley, just telling the story of Clive Sinclair. The only kind of forewarning is that the makeup job they did on the actor for Clive Sinclair is a little distracting. Like they worked pretty hard to make him look like a particular version of Clive at a certain age, and I think they would have been better off just letting the actor not look like him, because we get it, it's supposed to be Clive, we don't, yeah, so it's distracting because it's a bad wig and a bad makeup job and a bad bald cap, but if you can get past that, it's actually a really good movie. The cast is fantastic, like a real who's who of classic modern British actors, TV actors, and Martin Freeman and those lots. So it was an excellent watch, honestly. That's the main retro thing I did. And it's a dramatized docu something. I don't know how much of it is true, right? So it has a very particular viewpoint on who Clive Sinclair was, which is not super favorable to him. But it does kind of line up with what kind of happened. Like they lean pretty hard on his insistence on things looking nice versus having good functionality, which is certainly what we saw. Like you get things like the Sinclair QL and the ZX81 that looked very nice, but were basically garbage under the hood. Or his obsession with that weird 3D three-wheeled electric car.
I was going to say, speaking of under the hood, that the electric car was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he was obsessed with that thing, and they leaned pretty hard into that in the film as well. So it was a good watch. Recommend.
Yeah.
A true story. Only the facts have been changed to protect the guilty.
Yeah, it is sort of funny that I know exactly what you mean about the makeup, but I'm also sort of independently. I mentioned this last time, sort of independently intrigued by that because I know this actor from like an entirely different context, and where he's like a game show host, so it is it's funny to see him actually acting. But and then looking so much like a action figure or something.
Yeah, well, he does. He looks like a Ken doll of Clive Sinclair. Yeah. And so I like after the film, I actually Googled pictures of Clive Sinclair, and I think I figured out like the age at which they were portraying him. And there's sort of a vague resemblance there. You can see what they were going for, basically. But I think they would have been better off just not trying.
They probably were trying too hard. There have been.
Yeah, there it is. It's very much a thing of modern documentaries. They work very hard to get to cast actors who look like the people, or they do a lot of makeup to make the actors look like the people. But that's new. Like we used to just accept that, okay, we know this person is supposed to be this famous figure. It doesn't actually have to look like Napoleon. We get that it's Napoleon, even if it's whoever playing that person. But it seems recently now, if you're going to do a documentary or a historical period piece, everybody has to actually look like the people, or nobody's happy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I think we've made it now to the end, and so I will do the final closing incantation. That's it for this show. You can find the show notes for this and all the RCR shows at rcrpodcast.com. You can find lo-fi episodes and more via Gopher at rcrpodcast.com. You can discuss on this in the forums at forum.vcfed.org. Something, but it is in the Retro Podcasts discussion forum, which I did visit today, and responded to a message that's like from 4 years ago or something like that, I think. But you can follow RCR on Mastodon. We are at RCR Podcasts at podcasts.social. We are on Blue Sky at rcrpodcast.com. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RCR Podcast. You can send feedback to feedback@rcrpodcast.com. Write a review on iTunes if you want. And until next time,
Retro compute.
Yes.
Nice.
Got done before anyone else started.
Yeah, that's classic us. And technically, I got to say, we are under 2 hours. My piezo timer says 1 hour 57 and 56 seconds. So there you go.
Okay.
Under 2 hours. First time in, I don't know, years.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
Okay, well,
yeah.
we'll go and I will go and have some breakfast and then wrap up the audio and upload it.
Okay, sounds good. I will take us off the YouTube. So goodbye,
Bye, YouTube.
Thank you for
Bye,
coming.
YouTube.
Okay.